Right. Please join with me as you can and wish. I'll start with the first line that's in parentheses, and then we can do it together. And feel this in the heart. What's it like to live a life with this kind of intention? Oops. I'll start with the first line that's in parentheses, and then we can do it together. And feel this in the heart. What's it like to live a life with this kind of intention? Oh my God. It's, I can't find this stupid. Oh my God. I know what to do. There. All right. Actually, I have planned this morning, that for 2 hours, you're going to sit there and watch me fiddle on the computer and get really pissed off. And then I will say, the topic today was dukkha. And the cause of dukkha is having expectations that you can't fulfill. And then I would ring the gong and we'd all go home, and it would have been a brilliant teaching. Or not. I think I'm going to not do that if I can help it. But now I need to, oh, here it is. What the hell? Okay, get rid of that. Oh, there it is, back there. Now all I have to do is find Zoom. It is a pain doing this, and we'll get it more smoothed out than this. There is a way to get it smoothed out. I actually talked to a company that would give us, there would be 5 buttons that I could push, and they only want $8,000. So if you happen to have $8,000 and want to make this really smooth, talk to me after. Okay. From Chant love, loving kindness, means there's room for everything, even for electronics that are messing up. It's just another thing. So together, now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. There we go. View, speaker, record. There. As human beings have done now for thousands of years, we gathered together and we follow an intuition inward. There's so many other things one could be doing this Sunday morning. The garden needs work. The garage needs cleaning. The to-do list is endless. But somehow or another, we have the wisdom to prioritize coming together to stop. To stop and pay attention to this human mind, which is the source of all our joys and sorrows, ultimately. And in so doing, we are following an ancient lineage, in this case, the teachings of the Buddha as transmitted down through the Theravadan lineages in Burma and Thailand and Sri Lanka and Cambodia. But this longing is at the root of all the great spiritual traditions. We all have the same longing to be safe, to feel safe, to feel like our lives have purpose in a way, too. And in the foundational teaching of the Satipatthana Sutra, the Buddha said, take yourself to a quiet place, sit down, upright, placing mindfulness before you. Interesting translation. Bringing awareness into the phenomenon, the fact of in-breathing and out-breathing. Bringing attention, cultivating mindfulness, cultivating heart mindfulness attending to the actual sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. Or perhaps even more broadly, bringing awareness into the body that sits here. Notice the contact it makes with the chair or the floor. Notice the life in what you would call your hands. Notice the life in the face. And come home to the reality of the remarkable, utter impermanence of in-breathing and out-breathing. And we're not improving the breath somehow or controlling it somehow, or we're really just letting the body breathe. As it very well knows how to do, and has been doing since that moment when your mother could no longer breathe for you. It doesn't require any thinking. No concept at all is necessary. There's just presence, awareness, and sensations. Now, you may have discovered already that the mind really has a mind of its own. It may be in a tumult of thoughts. It could be in what would you call it? A chasm of sadness. It could be filled with joy. For those of you familiar with the 5 hindrances, you may be able to notice this is a mind that's colored by wanting, by desire, by leaning into the wanting factor, or by its opposite, by disliking and aversion and the mind striking against its objects. It could be a time in which restlessness, agitation, and worry are dominant, or where sloth and torpor, sleepy dullness, are dominant. Or there could be doubt. Why am I doing this? Does this work? None of these experiences are wrong or bad. They just are. And we use all of them as grist for the mill of our awakening. None of them are who we are. Though we often mostly wrap ourselves in them and think they're our identity. Instead, we take refuge in being awake, in knowing that which is happening. This is the refuge in the Buddha. And so we abide, we rest in the incoming and outgoing of the breath. And also invite ourselves to be aware of everything else that happens, not all at the same time. Just what's happening now and now. each and every breath, each and every thought or emotion. Every single one of them is an invitation to wakefulness. None of them are personal. Thoughts come into being all by themselves. The breath comes into being all by itself. And we can notice the quality of mind. This might be a mind of great ease. Such moments are delicious. Or it might be a moment of anxiety. It's a lovely word, equanimity. We practice equanimity, where the pleasant and unpleasant come and go. And somehow we are undisturbed, fundamentally undisturbed. there's something that is said frequently in meditation circles, certainly in Buddhist meditation circles. It's actually a transmission from the Buddha. Try to live in the present moment, or all there is the present moment. And that truth shines at us in every moment. Be here for this next few breaths, or these next few thoughts. That's what exists. Everything else is thought and memory and plans. And let us remember our intention of love and loving kindness, synonyms. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. Whew, there's a lot of relief in that. And as we open inwardly and awaken in the present moment, we will discover there's plenty of discomfort. There's plenty of suffering or dukkha. And so along with aspiring to hold ourselves in love, let us open to ourselves in compassion. Whenever I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. Compassion, the willingness to be with, to embrace in the midst of whatever. Please now let us clearly inhabit the body. The sensations from the toes to the calves and shins and the knees and the thighs, to all the life in the pelvis, to the deep organs cradled in the pelvis, to the sacrum. It's not a visualization, it's just allowing the life which is singing there to be known. The back. Notice all the places that clothing touches the body. The solar plexus and the chest. The fingers. The palm side of the hand and the back. And the wrists. And the forearms and the elbows and upper arms. The upper chest and the shoulders. The armpits. The throat and the neck. The cheeks and the eyes and the forehead, the scalp. And the ears. It's one mass of life. And please let us notice the eyes in particular. And notice that it's possible to will them to move around inside their beautifully lubricated little homes. They can make clockwise circles and counterclockwise circles. They can go back and forth. They can even do figure eights. Just intention, and then they move. Quite something. And now let us somehow empower this intention to let the eyes open. And then with great attentiveness, great simplicity of presence, let's let the eyes open. They open and they see. Seeing. How do you do that? I have no idea. Seeing. And of course, if there's limitations to vision, seeing will be even different. And I invite us here in the room to turn maybe a little bit and look around and see each other. And notice the electricity that happens when eyes meet. It's not electricity, it's consciousness meeting consciousness. As we meet ourselves, and those of you on Zoom can do the same sort of on Zoom in your little Harry Potter squares. I'm going to go back to speaker view. There we go. Well, that's my idea of a good time. Not my only idea of a good time. Thank you for coming. I'm kind of looking forward to announcements today, which is very odd. I just had a brilliant and obvious idea. I am looking for 2 volunteers. One in particular, but 2 would be better, and 3 maybe would be even better. I would like to train someone who is fairly computer savvy, how to do the broadcasts. And that person would sit over there with a cable between us and run the broadcast. It's really ridiculous that I should be doing such a thing. And the other teachers are not familiar with the system at all. I created it. And so we all approach it with trepidation. And that doesn't need to be the case. So if you are a person who could do that, ultimately what I want to do is to have 3 people, and we make a schedule, and there's a commitment that there will be somebody here each Sunday morning. I don't think I need somebody for my classes, but particularly when the other teachers are here, there's no reason in a community of our size we couldn't have such a setup. So if you're interested in that, please email me, robert@robertbeatty.com. Our volunteer coordinator, Maggie, is not here today, but she's now on the website. And you're going to see a moment of the website in a moment. As those of you that are here in the room can feel, it's very different being here in person. And I invite those of you that are on Zoom, if you're within, I know you're not going to make it here from California, but if you can come, it's very supportive of the community and of yourself. I had something else that I wanted to say. It seemed very important at the time. Well, I'm going to try this. Come on. Aha. We're going to watch some sports event is what I'm looking for. Oh, whoa, whoa! Let's start over. Oh dear. Source. I'm trapped. There. All right. Oh my God. This way. The other way. Hang on. What a silly thing. Okay. PC. That's what I want. But I want to get rid of that. Oh, I was feeling so good about this earlier because I had it together. Well, Go by itself. Go away. Oh, PC on TV. What if I did this? See, this is why we need someone. I actually could do it flawlessly, but in order to convince you that we need someone, I'm messing around with it. Okay, let's see if I push this. If I push source. Oh well. That's going to be as it is. It's not perfect, but it'll do. And then, oops, hang on. I want to do this, which is share this and go here and do this. Oh, I wish I could see it all. Darn. I'm going to fiddle one more second. Oh, here we go. Yay, thank you. How did you do that? I mean, that was, you're the guy. So we have a brand spanking new, beautiful, functional website. It's not quite complete, but a lot of it's here. So Kendall's going to talk about this in a moment live. I'm doing an 8-week group starting later in the month. The collected writings of Ajahn Sumedho. Jim is doing a half-day Qigong retreat. Doug Pullen is doing his inimitable basics of mindfulness. And on the 1st of October, I am offering here in the hall only, Remembering Death, a marvelous day of reflection on the reality of death and the freedom that comes from there. And I guess since this is up, I can show you this too. I can minimize this. There we go. We're doing something very unusual here. This community comes from a spore. I trained in India and some in Burma. And then I came back, and through a very circuitous route, I got connected with Ruth Denison. And I am a first-generation teacher of this practice here. And Arnold Toynbee, a British historian who got very depressed and came to America, and he went to a Zen community, and he transformed his life. And he then went on to write about what he envisioned to be that historians, if we're around 200 years from now, would say that the great event of the 20th century was the coming of Buddhism to the West. Makes me teary. Why? Because Buddhism transforms every culture it goes into. It always has. Because there's nothing more powerful than mindfulness. There's nothing more powerful than compassion. The 7 enlightenment factors, it transforms people's lives. They transform. The Buddhist teachings are transformative. And I look around this room, and there's some of you that I've known for a long time. Your lives have changed. Some of us, many of us, actually came through those front doors pretty bleeding psychically, emotionally. And while life remains very challenging and difficult, there's something about the floor that comes in when one has the Dharma. And so this is your place. And that's not metaphorical. I don't own it. The board doesn't own it. It's a 501c3 church, nonprofit, which means it's yours. And we're doing a whole, what do you call it? A visioning and planning process that you will become part of in the next 2 or 3 months if you want. And our intention is to continue this on into the next generations. It's a pretty impressive thing. And so this is a prelude, in a way, to asking you for your financial support. We need, you got here just a little too late, Laura. I would have had you be doing this. Laura is the chairperson of our board and also very helpful in our fundraising process. But I'd like you to hear this really differently than you hear usual fundraising. That this is an invitation for you to practice the mysterious, incredibly powerful practice of dana, which is this. It's the opening of the hand, opening of the heart, and saying, I want to support this. This is important to me. And we do it, it's an odd thing. We practice dana for selfish purposes because it feels so good, and also because it makes us prone to not being attached to things, to not clinging to things. So there's a way, and I can do it here. You could go to the website and click on, I haven't done this yet. Let's see if the link works. You could click on Donate Now. And here you have how to make a one-time gift, how to make a monthly gift, calculate the total. There it is. it worked. Pretty straightforward, huh? And let me get out of here. Well, maybe that's enough. I'm going to stop sharing. There. And your volunteer work is also incredibly needed. Since COVID, we had quite a shrinkage of our volunteer cadre due to COVID. And we need to pump that up. In fact, there's no one assigned to doing hospitality today. So I'm going to ask, is there someone who will make coffee and put out a few snacks that we have in the cupboard? You got that? Oh, you already did? Okay, great. So that was long-winded, but I'm glad I got to say it. And Candle, would you be willing to come up and speak a little bit about your group that you're starting? I'm going to change the camera. Oh, wrong. Logitech Brio, boom. Would you come over to this side? And here's this. And there you are. You can see yourself.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for being such a great example of patience and mindfulness while dealing with technology this morning. Oops, I'm out of the...
Yeah.
There we go.
And if you hold that pointing at yourself, it's much better.
Hello, Zoom friends. Hello, real life friends. New and not so new. Just out of curiosity, how many people are here for the first time?
Oh my goodness.
Fantastic. Welcome to our doors of welcoming. One of the first things I'd like to do is really appreciate those of you who appeared in person for our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion event of Mission Joy. It was wonderful to be able to share that and to open our doors with a larger group of people last month. And again, this month, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group, our team, has started the offering of the book, You Belong by Sebene Selassie, and I want to appreciate those of you who joined in on that. So we try to keep some diversity things offered and in front of you. The other thing that is coming up next Friday, so I'm so happy that the new website is up so that you can actually go there and register, is our Women's Restoration and Rejuvenation Group for all those who identify as female or are non-binary. It is once a month for 4 months at a time. So now it's September to December. It's the third Friday of each month at 6:30 on Zoom so that we can have people from all over join us. Right now it's about half full. We limit the registration to 16 people so that we can have a half an hour of sitting practice and time for each person to share what's on their mind and how they're feeling and who might have influenced them lately in the practice. So a few of you in the room here today are in the group. Thank you very much. And I'll be standing back here after our Dharma talk and be able to have conversation with anyone. And also on next Sunday night, the first and third Sundays of the month, I lead on Zoom the first and third Sundays. And so next week I won't be here, but I've invited a Sangha member who's very practiced at mindfulness teaching and who does it with groups and organizations and individuals and healthcare providers. Alpesh, would you raise your hand? Right here is Alpesh Pravik and his family. So if anyone wants to welcome him, he's new this time for our Sunday sitting. And that can all be found on the website, Yay for Molly. And if there's any issue, like you can't register or anything like that, my email is easy to remember. Candle, my name, Maui, where I lived for 30 years before I came here, @gmail.com. candlemaui@gmail.com if there's any trouble.
Thank you. Did you say you'll be here? Is it live?
No, it's on Zoom. I said I'd stand here after.
Okay, good. Thank you. There. Isn't that fun? The weaving of community. One thing you'll notice on the new website is if you're not on our, hang on, an intrusion here. And I just remembered something. Yeah, that's it. Someone appeared here at PIMC not long ago with lots of experience in communications, and this person, we were really it was a first or second conversation we had, and this person said, "Can I be really frank?" And I said, "Sure," and they said, "You know, your communication here at PIMC really sucks." Because this person had been trying to get on the listserv for 2 or 3 weeks and hadn't succeeded. So we're taking this very seriously. And with the new website, you should be able to, in one try, get yourself on the listserv so that you can receive information. It's not great when you have to fight your way in to get the basic information. It's kind of, it is like the old Zen stories, you know, the person who comes in, wants to come in the monastery and they leave them sitting in the snow outside for a month. That's not a very good for a modern organization. You have to actually be, oh, you want information? We'll actually give it to you. So Jim Dalton, would you be willing to lead us in some movement? And following Jim, I will be giving the 4th talk in a series of about 15 or so on the Eightfold Path. And this is on the fascinating, engaging, challenging topic of dukkha. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness or difficulty. As my teacher Ruth Dennison put it so beautifully, Dalink, there's always a leak in the canoe. That's dukkha. So, and after I'm done, then if you wish, come through the doorway into the back, and there's coffee and tea, and there are some fascinating human beings to meet back there. All right. Sure.
I just wanted to suggest that when you go on the website to join something, there's 2 options. Pimc Connections is an email.
You know, Candle, pause, because without this, half of our group is not hearing you. Come over here.
I usually have a pretty loud voice.
Doesn't work.
Okay, thanks. When you go to the website, if you want to be connected to communication, PIMC Connections is an email listserv with anybody posting what you want to post. The other thing is the digest. That will come into your mailbox just once a week on Mondays with the listing of things that are offered. So one is more socially communicative and the other is more announcement oriented.
Thank you. And I'll tell you after. All right, Mr. D. Okay, thank you. I think it's still on. Yes, I'm going to try to even this out.
All right.
Does that look level now?
Does it look level? Yeah, that's not bad. There's a big round thing there that makes it all.
That's good.
Yeah, it's all right. Here we stand. Try to live in the present moment. Well, I'm gonna move backward in time. This afternoon, first of all, I'm going to move forward in time. This afternoon, we're going to have a memorial service for Brooks Koenig. And at the very first Qigong workshop I gave, he was the only student. So we had a nice afternoon together. And this is what we did. So now I'm going back. But I'm trying to get into the present moment. I'll get there. Just gotta go. So the first thing we did was become aware of the life in the hand. So we reached out like this. Life in the hand. Life in the other hand. We recited this morning, we recited the Buddha's words on loving kindness, and there's in love, there's room for everything. So here we are, making room for everything. But what I wanted to teach Brooks was folding the hands or crossing the hands and coming to the heart, and then live in the present moment. Feel the hands against the rib cage and the heart and the torso, and there's movement. And then another small movement, make 2 fists with the thumb up, still touching the heart. So in the present moment, here we are touching this heart center, and then moving out, the thumbs are down, and then feel the stretch across the rib cage, through the arms, through the wrists, in the hands, down to the tip of the thumb, and then release. Back to the center, cross the wrists. Here we are, aware of the present moment. 2 hands to the heart, aware now, lifting, opening, releasing. Coming to the heart, here we are, lifting the thumbs and then opening the arms. And releasing. Present for all this movement and all this contact, stretching, opening. Letting go feels like this. Lifting feels like this. Touching. Lifting, opening. Releasing. Opening the hands so they're facing each other. Life in the palms, life in the thumbs and the fingers. Open, receiving each other. In love, there's room for everything. There's room for everything within this space. And then stretching one hand up towards the sky and the other towards the earth. Present here in this stretch apart. And then coming back to the center. Room for everything. Touching the sky, touching the earth. Present, releasing, making room for everything. Like this, we're here. Like this, we're here. So we can be in the present moment, moving, instead of the small, subtle movement of the breathing. We have these ancient movements that have been around in China for 3,000 years, but they were transformed by the Buddha's message that came later, bringing mindfulness into each aspect of these healing movements. We're stretching the inner organs and wringing them out a bit and removing toxins. We can be mindful of bringing healing movement to ourselves, which will spill out and connect with all of our loved ones as we relax and dissolve tension. It's a contagious connection with our loved ones. Once more. Back to the center, switching hands. Aware of life, aware of loving awareness, open to everything. Releasing the hands, opening to the sky with both hands, and coming down to the earth with both hands. A different kind of stretch. Aware of each release. Stress and strain dissolving with each release. Circulating mindfulness through the arms, through the hands, through the shoulders, and then releasing. Okay. Bring our feet together. Just close our eyes and just let the body move the way it wants to. Feel the breeze moving the leaves in the trees. Feel that sense of balance that keeps us upright even though we are moving into pleasant feelings here and there and everywhere. And then opening the stance, bringing the hands together in gratitude, thanking all the people who practiced with us. We'll be doing this again Saturday from 9 till 1 or maybe 2 if we get going on a trip. Thank you. Sure. Want some sound?
Yeah.
Little package.
Thank you. I see people leaving before the dukkha talk. How do I change this again? This to this 4K. There, good. Word. Oh. Jim, it doesn't work with you sitting over there. I looked over here to be reassured, and that level of change is beyond my capacity to tolerate. So, I shared with the teacher training group yesterday a story about Ruth Denison that I'd like to share with you here. It was quite a while ago, quite a long time ago. It was Jack Kornfield mentioned it in one of his books, and Sylvia Boorstein had it in one of her books. Neither of whom were there, but they got the report. She came to visit Portland, and I told everybody I could, my teacher's coming. And we were in the Dharma Rain Zen Center. So it's more than 20 years ago, because we've been here since almost 20 years. We've been here almost 20 years. That's weird. And she arrived, and I picked her up at the airport. I think she spent one night. I used to put her up in a hotel that was right on Lake Oswego, so she'd have a view of the lake. And I went to pick her up for the evening, and she was quite anxious. And she said, "You know, I don't like cold audiences. It's difficult for me to start." And I said, "Oh, you'll do fine. You'll do fine." She had, in the week or two before this gathering, had two major events in her life. One was she and Henry went for a walk, and they left the stove on, and they set the house on fire. It didn't get very far, but it was a traumatic event for her. And then she also fell asleep on the freeway between, in her car driving, between Yucca Valley and Los Angeles. And she coasted to the side, and nothing happened, but she was very upset about it. So she came to Portland, and she said, "Will there be a microphone?" She hated microphones. I said, "Yeah, there's going to be a microphone." And I just kind of said, "It's okay, you'll be fine," because she at times was so brilliant and spoke so fluidly. And well, she went up the stairs. She was ahead of me, and she went up the stairs into the Dharma hall, which was jammed, big, a little about the size of this, but many more people than there are right now. And she started to fall back, and I just kind of pushed her up, and she got on. And then she got on the stage, and I gave her the microphone, and she froze. And then she started finally, and she said, "We had a fire." And she described she and Henry going out for a walk and the fire. And then she ended that. And then she said, and last week I fell asleep driving on the freeway. And she told about that in significant detail. And then she said, "We had a fire," and talked about it in significant detail. And then she said, "I fell asleep on the freeway," and told that in significant detail. And then she said, "Did I tell you we had a fire?" And the tension in the room was through the roof. And my tension was beyond that. Here's my teacher, and my identity's all tied up in it. And she's clearly falling into dementia or PTSD. So people started to get up to leave. And she said, "You really shouldn't leave, because you're witnessing something very remarkable. A senior Buddhist meditation teacher is failing before your eyes. I have lost my mind, and I can't remember what I just said." And then she proceeded to go on describing exactly what was happening in her mind, moment by moment. And it was an incredible teaching. And then after that, she had us stand, and we did this. There's Joanna Macy, has been teaching for 2 or 3 decades, the Elm Dance, a dance from Europe that she learned when she was there helping the people of Chernobyl begin to talk about the incident. And she did that, and she led it for maybe 45 minutes. She always led dances longer than you were willing to do it for, which was part of the teaching, right? And then that ended, and we got back in the car, and she said, "See, I told you I can't do cold talks." And then I left her at the hotel, and the next morning I picked her up, and she was as sharp as a tack. And she said, "I didn't sleep all night. I sat and I gathered my parts together, and I reintegrated myself," which she had some experience doing previously in her life. So I'm not sure of the connection with this talk in particular, but I wanted to share that with you. PIMC would not exist without Ruth. I would not be teaching, certainly would not be teaching in the way that I am without her. I met her. She died 6 years ago. I was her student and then friend for 43 years. If you notice, coming into this room, there's a plaque over the door. This is Ruth Denison Dhammadina Meditation Hall. And that was there for a specific purpose, which is that in the year 2000, when she handed me the first check for $10,000 and said, "Here, start a center," and I went, I don't know how to do that. I said that, and she said, "Well, you'll figure it out, and there will be people to help you." And look at this, came to be. But she said, "I considered giving you the money, DOD, which means," she said, "delivery on death. But I wanted to see my name on something." So her name is on the door. I brought her in the first time through the door, and she liked that. So, dukkha. I have a poem for us. It's a poem by a fellow I met a long time ago now. It's funny, I say that a lot. His name is probably Richard Mize. He's a primary care physician in Northern California. The title is N'est pas fini, this war. This war's not finished. I deferred Vietnam, though I deferred not to my elders. He did it the other way. Now the war walks into my exam room. The old Hmong man comes weekly, and this pleases me, although he comes weekly, and this grieves me. Dreams, it seems, are wandering souls at night. One of his souls wanders nightly until he sees the man attacking with upraised knife, and he screams and awakens his wife and the children and the grandchildren, and then the house falls back into fitful sleep. He looks at me directly. This is rare. He asks for medicine to end his life, and I say no, and he cries. First, do no harm. Do I harm him to let him live? This is not sports medicine. In his pain, I see no gain, nor possibility. Except from my presence, I have nothing to offer him. No hope, no health, no medicines. I cannot even offer him his death, although he knows that I have it. His pain, too big for any one man, ripples back for 30 years and washes over his family, mostly dead. The nightly dream, a companion for 17 years, begins now to visit him during the day. I think, my God, why have you forsaken him? There's no answer, only the silence of the night, punctuated by his terror, and my sitting bolt upright, thinking again, oh my God. In the next room, I plainly hear the plaintive cry of a child with a painful ear. Yet I still sit still with my deferred war in the empty room. Empty. Thank you, Richard. This back up. There. On the wall at the back of the room is a sewn document. It has the Buddha sitting talking to 5 monks. It's a pictorial rendition of the first sermon. Here's Siddhartha, the Buddha now, who's been on his quest to try to find relief from sickness, old age, decay, death, and the end of suffering. He's been at it for some years, and he gets separated from these 5 men because he's not doing exactly what they thought he should be doing. But then he woke up. Something came through. Something of such radical importance that we're here today because of it. And what was the first thing he said to them? There's dukkha. Life is dukkha. What a strange thing to say. The word dukkha comes from one of its roots in the Pali language is if I had a wheel spinning beautifully if an axle is spinning beautifully in a race, maybe it's got all kinds of ball bearings and grease. If you throw in some grit, a little bit of sand, that's dukkha. And that's my favorite English word. Dukkha is ubiquitous. It's always with us. What does that mean? And I decided this morning I was not going to do, I've done these talks so many times, I can push the button and here's the dukkha talk, but I wanted to do something different today. So I share that poem. And then I want to say this. Have you noticed how difficult your life is? It's hard being a human. I know when I first heard about these teachings in my early 20s, I didn't really believe it. Because someday I was going to have my perfect job and my perfect partner and my perfect house, and my life was not going to be like my parents' lives, which were clearly filled with dukkha, but because I was going to be, well, I actually thought, I was born in the mid-40s, I really thought my generation was going to end war. That's pretty naive, but it was true. I thought we would achieve a distribution of wealth on the planet so that nobody would be hungry. So I didn't really believe it, though all I would have had to do was look at my life and see it's filled with so much more dukkha than my life is now. But there are some lists. You know why it's boring to talk to Buddhists? Tedious. They always talk with a list. Everything's numbered, and so there's the 4 ennobling truths. And there's dukkha is the first of them, suffering or challenge, difficulty. And there's a classic list: birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. I have 2 living children, who are 40 and 36. The first baby didn't make it through the pregnancy. We discovered at 12 weeks that my wife had German measles, rubella, which is catastrophic for the baby. And there's a whole story that went on for a long time. And in the end, we decided that we would end the life of that baby. And we had a saline abortion where they inject the baby with saline and then the baby dies. And then the mother gives birth to her then dead baby. And for all intents and purposes, our little baby named Subtle Heart eventually was fine, but his organs and so on were not going to. Her mother had a rubella baby 50 years earlier, Malcolm, who died at 6 weeks. Strange. So we then had the task of grieving that and then trying to get pregnant, and it didn't come easily. Neither of our babies came easily. Month after month, this trying and sadness and difficulty. And then there's birth itself, and it's a challenge. And then having children. I recently heard someone give me, with this, they said, the problem with having children is that you take a piece of your heart and you put arms and legs and a head on it. And then you send it out into the world. It's ridiculous. The vulnerability of that. And thinking of dukkha, it's quite probable, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but it's quite probable that there's someone in this room who's lost a child. Maybe several of us. I can ask this: how many of you have had one parent die? How about 2 parents? So some of you still have your parents on the planet. It won't last. How many of us have been divorced or lost a really important relationship? Like that. How many have lost a cherished pet? How many of us have had our career hopes crushed in some way? That's a lot of dukkha, isn't it? There's 4 more categories of dukkha, and they're massive. The first is having experiences you don't want to have. How many of those have you had today? Just a mood, right? Not having experiences you do want to have. Being with a person or persons you don't want to be with. Or not being. These are not unusual experiences, are they? They're the bread and butter of every one of our lives. I just had this wash of emotion that just took away all the thoughts. Now, for the most part, we humans, we don't like to think about this. In fact, you may be wondering, what the hell am I doing here, right? How's this going to help? How will it help? So we do lots of things to avoid thinking about it. For one thing, we that's one of the reasons for the day-long retreat on remembering death is really a retreat about facing into dukkha and discovering that we don't have to suffer the same way that we have been all our lives. So we stay really busy. We create fantasy goals. Someday I'm going to have this and then I'll be okay. We intoxicate ourselves in any number of ways. And we avoid being aware of the dukkha. I was reminded the other day that there's a correlation between spending a lot of time on Facebook and depression. And there's all these fantasies we put forward, and the media is so full of these fantasies. I'm getting so old now. I don't even recognize the important people. The what are they called? The influencers, and there was something recently, I heard a thing, it was hard for me to understand even, something about eyeshadow, and that some young person made popular, and it increased sales of this thing hugely, and I was like, what is going on here? Why? I mean, it is bad when I'm old enough that I don't even get it. It's like, what? But if I'm concerned about my eyeshadow, I'm probably not paying attention to the anxiety that's beneath that I'm interested in it even. Funny, I think of these things and there's this wave of sadness. I've had the privilege of living in a step family. Hard. God, living in step families is challenging. Whew. But I recently, we've launched my stepson, Adrian, who's off in Chicago. Before him was Nina. She's in Eugene. They're both doing great, bringing some real beauty to the world. There was a moment when we went to Cirque du Soleil, and it was great to get the four of us together. And it was at the intermission. And I came back to discover that Nina had her phone. Of course, she was very committed to her phone, as were all her friends. On her 12th birthday, we had 12 girls stay overnight, camping in the living room. And I went in around midnight or so. Every single one of them was on their phone with someone outside the room. It's interesting, odd. Not odd, normative. But anyway, she was taking pictures at the Cirque du Soleil, like posing. And it was so formulaic. And I went up to her and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh," and she said, I'm putting this onto Instagram, I think, so my friends will know that I'm here." And I actually started weeping. So it's this desperate thing that we do to matter, to be seen, to be known. So, birth, sickness. How many of us have had COVID once? How many have had surgery? I could put my hand up several times. I had a brain surgery 3 years ago. I had a carpal tunnel surgery not so long ago. This thing's falling apart. Birth, sickness. Who's afraid of sickness? Right? Every one of us. Is cancer brewing? Or sickness? Old age. Yes. I really have been in denial. I didn't think I was. I've been teaching this stuff for decades. I didn't really think I would get old. For one thing, I thought I would die. For the longest time, I thought I would die quite young. In fact, way back in 1974, I completed a master's in environmental studies at York University, which I went to do because I had traveled for 5 years around the world. I worked on ships and I was a cowboy in Australia. I did a lot of things in my early 20s. And what I saw was that the world was coming apart at the seams. The environmental catastrophe in 1974 was stunning. And of course, we've gone so far beyond that now. But there was something called the Club of Rome gathering. I forget how many people there were, but it was important. Educated people from around the whole world got together in Rome, and they predicted that 1984 was when the collapse would start. And it did, actually, but it wasn't. I thought the end of the world would be then. So I didn't think I was going to live that long. So here I am now at 75. And just recently I saw a news report of someone who died at 81. And I thought, oh, they're old. Then I realized, good God, wait a minute. 5 years ago in this room, my wife and daughter created an incredible birthday party for me, and that was yesterday. So it's slowly sinking in. And then sickness. I have so many friends who are sick. I heard of 2 more yesterday. Sickness, old age, decay, and death. We're having a memorial service today for Brooks Koenig, who died a few weeks ago. And that's at 2:00 if you want to participate in that. So having experiences we don't want to have, not having experiences we do want to have, being with people you don't want to be with, or not being with the beloved. So what the Buddha proposed, or what he discovered, was This is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's all here all the time. And so if I were to stop this talk right now, it would be, God, this is really terrible. All there is suffering, but that's not true. Because there's a second ennobling truth, which is there's a cause to this suffering. And the cause is not outside us, it's in the human mind. And the cause is that there's an idea of a self that can't accept reality. It's a self that basically has some very powerful programming that says, stiff, this is getting stiff. It says, I really want things to be okay. I want pleasure. I'm going to seek pleasure. I'm going to seek comfort. And then when I fail at that, there's dukkha. This isn't as comfortable as I would like. And then there's another aspect of us which says, I don't want discomfort. I don't want achiness. I don't want the loss of a friend. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want. And all day long, there's micro and not so micro experiences of wanting something to be different and wanting something to be different in the opposite direction. I don't want it to happen. And then there's a third strategy that the mind has, which is, this moment is not okay. I'm going to become something different in the future. I'm going to lean into the future and get rid of this moment because this moment isn't very nice. And what the Buddha discovered, and this is, I believe, I propose, I think this was the most important discovery a human ever made. Fire was important, antibiotics are important, there's lots of things that are really important, but this is the key, the king, queen. If I am willing, and meditation is very profoundly about this, if I am willing to become a student of dukkha and realize just how often I feel, experience, or anguish, or just bored, or if I'm willing to do that, I start to become familiar with the fact of it, and something changes about it. It becomes something I can actually pay attention to. And we get opportunities like a toothache, or a loss, or stuck in traffic. And there's dissatisfaction and dukkha. So we learn about it intellectually, like in a talk like this. We start to pay attention to it as a phenomenon, and then we begin to develop some mastery, some capacity to be with dukkha, with suffering, without flinching. It's one of the reasons that in time, it's true on retreat certainly, that we sit in meditation and we make a vow. I'm going to sit here for 45 minutes, or I'm going to sit here an hour. Or sometimes at the beginning, it's 5 minutes. I'm going to sit here no matter how it feels, unless I'm injuring myself. And we can go through some really heavy stuff just because, God, I can't move. Oh, I hate this. Or a mosquito comes and lands on us and we've made a vow not to move. I remember one mosquito one time, it came, and then I watched her feed right here. And she got all plump and fat, and then she went boom and flew away to make babies. It was hard. I mean, the itch, the intensity of the itch of that, but it was helpful. I did go through my mind, I'm not in malaria country or Zika virus, or I did all that stuff. So we begin to realize that dukkha is real. It's really real. And then we start looking, because we're developing a mind which can attend to itself, we start looking at what's causing this dukkha. The event is the pain in the body, is the pain in the body. But what's this suffering coming from? And then we have the hypothesis, the teaching here, Well, the suffering comes from a self, a sense of self that doesn't want this, or wants something else, or wants to become something else. And so we're in the midst of hurting, suffering, and we start paying attention to the suffering itself, and then somehow or another we realize, and this vocabulary here comes from Fred Luskin, Forgive for Good, a marvelous book. If you have any resentments in your life, terrible things to have, Fred Luskin has a strategy, has a practice to help you get over those things. But he said, our suffering is caused by our unenforceable rules. Right? We have a lot of them. My child should not be an addict, is one suffering. Or there should not be a great lie happening in the middle of our culture. There should not be artillery pounding at each other in Ukraine. There should not be this cancer in my body, or there should not be, there's all these things that should not be, but they are. And it's one thing to dwell in it and to get lost in stories and to make things worse and ain't it awful. This is something quite different from that. It's looking directly at the mind itself and how it's kind of bashing against reality and saying, it can't be like this, it can't be like this. Well, it is like this. And so, first thing is we get the idea, maybe there's something else I could do. And then we start doing it, and then we become rather good at doing it. So we can, for instance, if we're homesick, we can discuss, over the years I've had so many people say, I couldn't meditate because I was sick. There's nothing else you can do when you're really sick, right? And so what do? Well, you turn toward the symptom and you discover this feels terrible. I know that when I had COVID, the first day was not nice. Didn't last long, but I was sick. And what did I do? Well, I got to cancel everything. That was nice. And then to just lie there and turn toward the symptom, to turn toward the pain and the confusion and the yuckiness, and just notice, and there wasn't much suffering at all. There was just sickness. And we learn to do this with small pains and then bigger pains and then really big pains, the pain of loss. And we start having this experience that the suffering diminishes and or sometimes simply vanishes. Nothing's changed in the world. I still have the same symptom. I'm still missing the same person. But the politics are still the same. But I'm no longer anguished about it because there's some way I've grown up. And I'm accepting reality. This is how it is. That's the path, the doorway opening into what the Buddha called nirvana or nibbana, which is, it's like this. I can stop suffering. And it's all rooted in this sense of a self, an I am. And the meditation journey has that next week, 3 weeks hence, I'll be gone for 2 weeks. There's this core, beautiful teaching in the Buddhist model, which is anatta, not soul or not self. So we develop the meditation and we go in and in and in and we discover, it's not so much that I am I, it's that I am this. I am thou. I am. So, there's an equation, which is suffering varies directly with the craving. And the craving is, I want pleasure, I want less pain, or I want to become something. As soon as we relinquish these, the suffering diminishes. And It does not mean, however, that our lives become simple or easy, because they aren't, and they're not going to be. Right? If nothing else, we are all aging, and so are all our friends. If you happen to have children, their lives are going to be, they may be wonderful, and they're going to fall apart at times. And because this has been, well, it's so important to me. We live on a planet whose climate is out of control. And we don't know the least thing about how to pull it back. And we're not showing much skill at cooperating with one another. So just as it makes sense to me to practice so that as I go forward in my aging, I don't make a lot of mess, or I make less mess. Same as our culture faces this, what would we call it, a monster, that we learn, sitting right here. Joanna Macy actually said to me, had one hand on her feet and one hand on her hands, and she said, "So what if that's true, Robert? What if the climate really is completely out of control, and we're facing some very, very difficult times?" She said, "Isn't it wonderful that you can live your life in such a way that you'll stay loving and compassionate and be as much help as you can?" Which is what a wonderful aspiration for us, right? I want to be as loving as I can and make as little mess as I can and be kind. And a part of that is learning to face dukkha and to not act out. When the dukkha level gets high, our tendency is to thrash around. But we can go the other direction. And I'm going to end on one more thing here. Thank you for listening. Here it is, I think. Nope. This is a quote from Pir Vilayat Anayat Khan, Sufi teacher. All right. In the Sufi tradition, there is a saying, "Overcome any bitterness that may have come because you were not up to the magnitude of the pain that was entrusted to you. Like the mother of the world who carries the pain of the world in her heart, each of us is a part of her heart, and therefore is endowed with a certain measure of cosmic pain. You are called upon to meet it in compassion and equanimity instead of self-pity and despair. The secret? Offer your heart as a vehicle to transform cosmic suffering into love." Isn't that something? In the Sufi tradition, there is a saying, "Overcome any bitterness that may have come because you were not up to the magnitude of the pain that was entrusted to you. Like the mother of the world who carries the pain of the world in her heart, each of us is part of her heart and therefore is endowed with a certain measure of cosmic pain. You are called upon to meet it in compassion and equanimity instead of self-pity and despair. The secret? Offer your heart as a vehicle to transform cosmic suffering into love." So, How do I get back here? There we are. I hope you hear in this something very hopeful, because there's a danger. I know I was so depressed and depressive in coming to the Dharma. For the longest time, I heard it as just a kind of, well, life sucks and let's get on with it, sort of, as opposed to this is really a teaching about love and compassion and joy and delight. That since, I have to stop here, Robert. Since everything's going to fall apart, everything, why not be joyful? Right? Why not realize, wow, we have this moment. We have today. My heart's still working great. Your heart's still working great. Why don't we dance? Why don't we go out to dinner? Why don't we be let's take the time to do our practice and really get into ourselves. But why not write and let that person know you're not angry at them anymore? Or why not tell this person or that person that you love them? Because it's all going to go away. It's all like a dream coming into being, and we become very powerful when we're no longer flinching from, oh, it feels bad. Of course it feels bad. Okay. Let us thank you to those of us who joined us on Zoom today. I hope this worked for you. And let's stand, make a big circle all the way around the room, and do a little closing moment. Hey, Aaron, come here. I want to hold your hand. Hi, haven't seen you in forever. Come up here. All right. So this has been kind of a heavy talk. That being the case, I think we should do the secret teaching. You ready? Now, you have to all agree you will not tell anyone you did this. Really? Okay, because it's so impressive. All right. Does your body feel sort of heavy? It's kind of dense, isn't it? Let's levitate. Now, levitation is done, you start small. And so it goes like this: 1, 2, 3, levitate. And if you bend your knees first, at the moment of levitation, you can actually leave the ground. So you want to try it? Bend your knees, and there's one other piece. Think the periodic table. Think hydrogen or helium or feathers or lightheartedness. And so bending the knees, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then we all levitate. You ready? Bend the knees. 1, 2, 3, levitate. Now, did you sense it? There's someone here who is holding doubt. I can't quite figure out who it is, but stop it. All right. Letting the knees bend. 1, 2, 3, levitate. You at home could be helping too. You don't have to be sitting in your chairs. We're starting a levitation movement around the world. All right, we're going to do one. Did you feel it longer? I felt it was longer. I kind of drifted around for a while. All right, so helium. Hydrogen's too dangerous to have it in the room here. So helium. So bending the knees. 1, 2, 3. Helium. Oh, let's do it once more for fun. 1, 2, 3. Levitate. Wow. I felt it that time. Yeah. Meditators get weirder and weirder. So let's close with a traditional song. Ruth Dennison used to do this all the time. The words are Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam, Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. And they mean, may all beings receive all blessings. And the greatest blessing, of course, is waking up. So do it 3 times, and then the word sadhu, which means may it be thus, or it's kind of like the Buddhist amen. So please join in as you wish. Bhavatu
Sabe Mangalam
Bhavatu
Sabe
Sabe
Mangalam
Bhavatu Sabe
Mangalam
Sadhu
Sadhu
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you for coming, dear friends.
Thank
And
you, Robert.
now we get to carry out the great experiment. Is this circle permanent or impermanent? What do you think? Are we stuck here, or do we get to go on and have our separate lives? Let's try. Can we separate? Wow, it's shocking, isn't it? It's impermanent. Thank you, dear friends. Just another note, I will be absent next Sunday. Are you on next Sunday? Gregory's next Sunday. The weekday meetings from 7 o'clock, all the teachers will be filling in my absence. And I look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from today. I'm going to teach in Canada. Happy trails.